Connecting the two parks together. So the big pit that's out there, it's going to become a park. There's going to be a soccer complex. We have a board out there that shows that. And this property is right in between it. And there's Native American artifacts there. The history of the foreign Native States. So it'll be open space out there.
Welcome to the combined neighborhood general meeting of the University District Neighborhood Council and the Lewis and Clark Neighborhood Council. It is a meeting, formal meeting, and at the end of our forum tonight, there will be a short adjournment, and then we will come back for questions that are not on the agenda. So all of the first part of this is dedicated to the issue that we all came out, most of us came out for. But if some of you folks did want to make comments that aren't related to this topic, we can hear those after everything else is done. So I'm Dave Chrisman. I'm on the leadership team and the chair of the University District Council. And this is Emily Swanson.
Emily Thompson, that's okay. I'm on the leadership team and the chair for the Lewis and Clark neighborhood. We're the two neighborhoods sponsoring this, and I just wanted to put in a quick plug to get involved with your neighborhood councils, Lewis and Clark University, or wherever you are. We really need to have people come out. Lewis and Clark in particular, we're trying to develop our leadership team, get some meetings going, and we'd love to have some active participation from anyone in the neighborhood, but I know all neighborhoods would really love to have involvement. So if you haven't already, we'd love for you to sign in on the table up front there, and there's information, little pamphlets about the neighborhood council's program.
Thank you, David and Emily. Please hold while we resolve some technical issues. That was good enough. All right. That's good. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. My name is Christina Swanson, and I work with NCBI, the National Coalition Building Institute. We're an organization that does facilitation for all different kinds of groups, from police departments to churches to schools to neighborhood councils. And we do prejudice reduction work, we do leadership development, youth development, and conflict resolution and violence prevention. And the neighborhood councils, Lewis and Clark and University Neighborhood Councils, asked us to come today to facilitate this forum. And you are all here because we're going to discuss the location of the Missoula College at what is currently the golf course site. I'm going to tell you how we're going to run the meeting today. It's a little different maybe from other public meetings that you've been to. And then I'm going to introduce the folks from the university, and they're going to give a presentation. And what they're going to do is answer some questions that were posed to them by the university councils. Your councils distributed a survey within the last few weeks, and the answers to those questions are what, or the questions that were generated in that survey are what the university are going to respond to. What we're going to do after that, the university is going to give their presentation, and then the reason we have you all sitting at tables is we're going to give you an opportunity to ask follow-up questions and make comments in response to what you hear from the university. But you're going to be talking in small groups, and the reason for doing that is to make sure that everybody gets a chance to be heard. We're going to have a facilitator at each of your tables that's going to facilitate you having a brief discussion in answer to some questions. The comments and the questions that you raise when you have that small group session are going to go back to the university, and they've made a commitment to respond to those. And they're going to talk more about, at the end of the session, about how that's going to happen. And so there's kind of two parts to what we're doing tonight. And then after that, we will do a brief closing, and then there will be a brief break, and then the university and Lewis and Clark neighborhoods will take additional public comment not related to this agenda item. So I wanted to tell you about a Missoula moment that I had a couple of days ago. And you probably all get to experience Missoula moments every now and again. For me, they happen when I see rainbows over Mount Sentinel, or I see a blue heron flying over the Clark Fork River, or I see some neighbor downtown and we get to chat for a minute. Those are the Missoula moment things. This particular Missoula moment happened, actually, it started in New England, where I grew up. And I was looking on Google Maps at the house that I grew up in, and saw that the hundreds and hundreds of acres of woods that were behind my house, where I spent my entire childhood when I wasn't eating or sleeping, had been completely razed. And there were housing developments there. And, oh, it just hurt my gut. And I thought about this forum. And I thought about how we have different values about the places that we care about. Those woods were owned by a family who I happen to know were dirt poor when I was growing up. And I don't know, but I wonder if selling that property enabled them to make a different life for themselves and for generations of people in their family. And I thought about this forum, and I thought about how in Missoula we are so connected to place. We are so connected to the places that we love, and we have very deep, strong values about those places. And I want us to remember that tonight, because whether you're a university president who wants every student to have the most excellent education, or you're a neighbor who wants to be able to enjoy open space right near your house, you have a value that's connected to this place. And what we're going to do is talk about how we're going to respect each other's values, even if we disagree, even if we don't agree with each other, we can still listen to each other and respect each other. And that brings me to the guidelines. And those of you who are at the table see these yellow sheets, and maybe some of you have read them. And these are guidelines that we're going to follow for our discussion tonight. I'm going to go through them real quickly. Practice self-focus. That means you're just paying attention to yourself, how you're feeling, how you're behaving here in this group today. Respect. The assumption is that we're all good people. Even if we disagree, even if our values are different from one another's, we're all good people and we have good intentions. We can listen to each other, and we're going to ask that there be no personal attacks, heckling, or profanity. Reach for honesty. When you're in that small group session and you get to talk and ask questions, reach for what's true for you about this issue. Personalized knowledge. Speak about your own ideas and your own thoughts and your own feelings. Don't speak for your neighbors or your colleagues or everyone else. And then listen for understanding. Listen to things that you might not agree with and just try to understand, reach for that. There's a listening continuum on the bottom. The left side is pretty much not listening, blaming, judging, and attacking. We're reaching for listening tonight. We're reaching for the middle of the continuum, listening and understanding, and eventually getting to the place where we can set and act on common goals. If you feel like you have something to say tonight that doesn't fit into our agenda, there are a couple of different ways that you can do that. One of them is Kiki and Ben are NCBI facilitators who are raising their hands right now. And they're here to listen to you. If you have something you absolutely just need to say, and we ask that you not disrupt the group, but they will walk out with you and record whatever you have to say, and we'll make sure that that gets to the university. We also have a pad right there with some markers, and it says questions and comments for the university. Again, it's another way you can write down a question or a comment that will get back to the university, and they have committed to responding to that. So, we're ready to go now. I'd like to welcome the folks from the University of Montana, and I will just give the floor right now to President Royce Engstrom, and he will introduce his colleagues.
Good evening. Thanks for coming out tonight. We appreciate you taking the time. And I very much appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion with you and the way that you set this up. Christina, thanks for being here and work with NCBI. We've actually worked with NCBI on our campus quite a bit during the course of the year, and really have a great deal of respect for you and the organization. I want to thank Dave and Bill for being, I guess, the instigators of this, or at least the folks that talked with me about setting this up, and really appreciate your conversation the other day and getting us ready for this. Let me introduce the folks who are up here with me. Rosie Keller is in our Office of Administration and Finance. Rosie has been very involved in a lot of the planning that has gone on for really many, many years around this project. And so she has a great deal of detailed information in her mind that she can bring to the discussion. Peggy Poor is our Vice President for Integrated Communications, a newly restructured position, and Peggy is also the Dean of our School of Journalism, and so I asked her to come in these last few months to work on communication at the university. She's doing a fantastic job. We appreciate her being here tonight and being in the role she is. Very Good is the Dean of the College of Technology. See, I just did it myself. We just had the renaming ceremony about 2 hours ago, and we pledged that we would never say College of Technology again. So it's the Missoula College. Okay, so there's a quarter I have to put in the feed already. Barry is the Dean of the Missoula College, and has been in that role for about 6 years now. Very enthusiastic about the mission of the college, and an effective leader at the college. So thank you all for being here. We'll just call on you as the opportunity rises during the course of the evening. There are a lot of other folks I see from the university here. I appreciate very much your attendance, and I know that many of you have been involved in this project in one way or another as well. So if the occasion is right and you feel you have something to add to one of the questions or the answers, please speak up and do that. I want to make just two opening comments before Christina gets us to the specific questions. So the first one of those is that I really want the University of Montana to be a good neighbor and to be viewed as a good neighbor. I get the opportunity on almost a weekly basis to talk to prospective students, parents, prospective faculty members, and other employees at the university. And, you know, frequently they'll say, well, what are the real strengths of the University of Montana? And almost always, about the first thing that I talk about is the relationship between the community of Missoula and the University of Montana. We enjoy a relationship that very few institutions around the country, very few universities actually have. To have the physical location of the downtown and the university across the river from one another is excellent, but more important is the tremendous involvement in both directions, on the part of community members at university functions and vice versa, university people downtown, in and around the town as events go on. So it is a tremendous strength of the University of Montana and an asset that I use continuously. I don't want that to deteriorate. I'm committed to having a good relationship with the community, with the neighborhoods, and so let's work toward that. I know that some of you may feel that you haven't been heard or listened to over the past few years, so let's change that. I want to make sure that we have a good open line of communication, that we're addressing your concerns, and we are working as diligently as we can to be a good neighbor, a good citizen of this community. Secondly, I want to give you just the context in which I have approached thinking about this issue of the Missoula College and where it should be. And for me, that context is really thinking about the next 50 to 100 years of the University of Montana and what we need to do to ensure that the university is well positioned to serve this community, this state, and this nation as we go forward. If you think of the last 100 years, 120 years, there have been times of economic challenge. There have been times when the demographics of students have changed to where the student population has gone down or up or whatever. There have been many challenges to the University of Montana over that time period. Nonetheless, over that period, the university has grown in a steady way. Some ups and downs here and there, glitches and so on. But over time, we've gone from a university serving a couple of thousand students to a university serving 15,000 students. So where is that headed? Well, none of us has a crystal ball, but I firmly believe that we are in a time in our country when higher education has never been more important, possibly with the exception of right after World War II, when so many people came back from the war and used higher education to get a start on their lives. But other than that, I think we are at a moment in history where higher education is playing a more important role for our country and for this state than it ever has. Our economy is never going to go back to the way it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. We're in an information-based economy, we're in a knowledge-based economy, we're in a knowledge-based quality of life situation. We are anticipating just a few years from now that the jobs available to people, 68% of those jobs will require a college education of some sort, a credential of some sort. It might be a 1-year, 2-year, 4-year, or even a graduate degree. And we're now educating only about 40% of our young people. So we have a lot of growing to do, and in my mind, that's going to only continue. We're only going to grow. This next 50 years, the next 100 years, in my opinion, we're going to grow just like we have in the past. There may be some things that happen, distance education, those sorts of things that change the nature of education to some extent. But I fundamentally believe that we will always have the need for a strong physical aspect of the University of Montana and the other universities in our country. So I need to think about this issue in the context of where we are headed as a university. And to me, that's a bigger issue than talking about a single building, in this case, the Missoula College. I think that we would be having this discussion no matter what the next building was that we needed to think about for the university. So in that regard, I look at the area where we have enough contiguous space to really think about the long-term future of the University of Montana. So that's the context that I think about this in. And so it's a bigger issue to me than the placement of a single building. And so with that, let's turn to the questions, and I will promise you we will be as forthright as we possibly can in answering these questions and any others that you might have. We might not have all of the answers tonight, and in fact, I want to say up front, this is a work in progress. All of this isn't decided. We need to continue to work together to plan for the best university, the best community that we possibly can. So with that, thank you again. Why don't we go ahead and get started on the specific questions then.
Okay, so the way we're going to do this is I'm just going to read the questions and President Engstrom will answer them. And I'll just go through them one by one. And we're going to try to get through these in a half hour, just FYI. Okay. So the first question has actually 3 questions embedded in it, and he did get these questions ahead of time. So, the history of efforts to meet the needs of the students of the College of Technology, now named Missoula College, included a 2002 study which looked at 7 sites and selected the Fort Missoula site. The study eliminated the South Campus site because of community opposition. What has changed? There was also a congressional allocation of $750,000 per year for 5 years to plan a College of Technology Futures Park at the fort. How was that money used, and why is the current plan so different from the previous plan?
Okay, thank you. There are actually 3 master plans. 3 master plans that have been developed that relate to this project in the end. One of those is the master plan for the main campus, the mountain campus of the University of Montana. That's 2002. So that was a plan that really addressed the issues on what we think of as the mountain campus. That plan identified 7 remaining building sites on the main campus. Over the years, those 7 sites have in fact been filled in all but one case with the building that was designed for that. So the Phyllis J. Washington College of Education and Human Sciences was one of those, for example. The Payne Family Native American Center was another one, and so on. The site remaining that was in that original master plan for the main campus that hasn't yet been developed is the 5th and 6th Street area, which is now residential. So that plan, the long-term plan, calls for eventually putting something in that site. And that something is likely in our plan, in our thinking, to be a welcome center, an alumni center, and possibly an art museum that would serve as an entryway to the main campus. So that master plan really addressed those 7 sites. The next master plan then was a Fort Missoula master plan that was developed in 2004. It addressed the land that we own as a university out at the Fort Missoula location. There are really 3 tracts, 3 parcels of land there that make up the Fort Missoula combined ownership. And one of those is the piece of land where the west campus of the Missoula College now resides. The second piece of land is actually across the river, south of the river, and it's inaccessible currently by any roads or anything like that. It's, the only way you can get there is from the river at this point. And the third piece of land then is back north of the river and includes a couple of buildings that we actually have operations in, a geology lab and a biology lab, a bird flight center out there. And so at the time of that study, the master plan for the Fort Missoula campus, one of the things that was considered was could we in fact place what was at that time called the COT out there. And the conclusion of that plan was that that site wasn't a very good location for the COT at that time for a variety of reasons, but one being that we didn't actually own enough suitable land to build the building on. That was the conclusion of that 2004 master plan, that the acreage wasn't sufficient, and some of the complications with archaeological relevance and floodplains and so on came into play. And so it wasn't given what we own currently out there, that wasn't deemed to be a suitable location. Does that mean it could never become a suitable location with additional acquisition and so on? No, I think it doesn't mean that. So I think that Fort Missoula land isn't off the table for further development, but I'm just reporting to you that the 2004 master plan concluded that that wasn't a very suitable location for the COT. So then the next plan is the South Campus master plan, and that is really the plan that is most relevant here. And that is the plan that was developed leading up to 2007 and developed in terms of the use of the golf course area for academic, recreational, housing, and athletic purposes, essentially the development of a full South Campus over time. It's a plan that involves a good deal of emphasis on green space. It places high value on the openness of the area. It preserves much of the green space, and it focuses on the attractive placement of buildings and the other facilities that we would need to develop a South Campus. That plan was developed by a committee that had 4 members from various neighborhood councils on it, and it was a plan that had quite a few meetings associated with it, including a number of open meetings specifically to discuss the South Campus Master Plan. We took that master plan, and I say we sort of symbolically here because it happened actually before I even arrived in Missoula, but it was approved by the Board of Regents in 2007 as a way to move forward for the university again for the next 50 years. It was essentially designed as a 50-year plan. And so that South Campus Master Plan is a very comprehensive view of how that land would be developed, and so it served as a guide then for further thinking. 2 other projects came into play that relate to this. One of those was this hydrogen campus plan that was developed around the Fort Missoula area. And so the university, through the work of the person who was then dean of what was then the College of Technology, was very interested in hydrogen as a fuel for the future economy of our state, of our nation. And so he worked with our congressional delegation to get some funds directed to the university to work on the concept of a hydrogen campus. That the money that came to us actually was designated for a multiple set of purposes. One was to develop an educational curriculum around alternative energy and energy technology. That curriculum was developed and put into place. Another one was to develop a website, an informative website for public outreach. That was done and accomplished. A third aspect was actually to do fundamental research on the use of hydrogen as a fuel, and that was done over a number of years. And finally, a component of that project was, in fact, to plan the idea of a hydrogen campus focused around, again, what was then the College of Technology at the Fort Missoula site. So the folks who were working on that plan did indeed develop such a plan. It was a very futuristic thinking kind of a plan. I applaud them for being so creative in their approach. The fact is, the hydrogen economy hasn't developed, and so along the way, the plan was essentially set aside in favor of moving in another direction. And so that money was spent on intended purposes, including the development of a plan, but it was a plan that in the end never materialized because we haven't developed a hydrogen economy in any sense of the word in our country. And so we moved on from there. So that's the status of that Fort Missoula plan. Okay, then in the 2007 legislature, essentially at the time the South Campus Master Plan was accepted by the Board of Regents, the Montana legislature appropriated $500,000 to plan specifically a building for what will become the Missoula College, or what was in the COT. And so the appropriation of $500,000 then was put toward developing an actual site plan for the building that will serve as the Missoula College. And that plan then, some of the elements of that plan are the posters and pictures that are on your tables here. And so it was a plan, the details of which focused on the building design itself, but also the things that are of so much interest and concern to us here. Traffic patterns, parking situations, number of students and student flow and so on, accessibility, and the preservation of green space. That plan is in place. Now, that doesn't mean that we're done with that plan. In fact, there's much work to do in terms of the details of things like traffic and things like parking and so on, and precise placement and all of that. So there's a lot of work to do, and that's the work that needs to be interactive going forward from here on out. So those are the plans that are relevant to tonight's discussion and give us sort of the position where we are today.
Thank you. I want to clarify one question. The congressional allocation of $750,000 per year for 5 years, you were saying that that is what went to developing the alternative energy curriculum, those 5 things that you listed?
That's correct.
Okay.
I think there were 4 things that I listed, yes. And that money went to the objectives of the proposal that got that money here were those 4 objectives.
Okay, great. This is the next question, which has 2 questions embedded. There are concerns about increased traffic because of the planned development, and that's at the golf course site. What studies have been done to estimate how much new traffic will be added to the neighborhood roads by these plans? What do they show will happen on neighborhood roads, and how will the university mitigate the extra traffic?
Okay, so that 2008 plan for the Missoula College building, the one that came from the $500,000 legislative appropriation, that plan includes in it a traffic pattern study, a parking study, a green space study, walkway study, a cultural study, and an environmental assessment study. And so the traffic aspect of that was built on the information we had available to us at the time. At the time, the enrollment of the Missoula College, and this isn't very long ago, was about 1,500 to 1,800 students in that range. And so that the plan that was put together at that time was sort of built on that assumption. While our enrollment is higher than that at the Missoula College, it's closer to 2,400, 2,500 now. And so it is clear that we need to continue to refine, continue to work on that traffic plan to make sure we're addressing the traffic for today's needs and even going into the future, because if that area continues to be developed as the plan calls for, it's serving more than just Missoula College students over the long run. It will serve probably thousands of students as time goes on, the various functions that are on that campus. So we know that we have work to do on the traffic plan, and we'll keep refining that traffic plan and working again with your input to do so. But a traffic study was completed as part of that specific plan, and needs continued work, and so we'll do that.
Question 3, 4 embedded questions. Parking is a problem in university neighborhoods. Please tell us how many parking spaces will be built on the South Campus. What is the total square foot of asphalt or concrete planned? How many spaces on neighborhood streets do the plans depend on to meet parking needs? And will the university enforce parking regulations on neighborhood streets, i.e. South Avenue, or will the city be tasked with that duty?
I'll be the first to admit parking is a problem in university neighborhoods. Parking is a problem on, I think, every university campus and every university neighborhood that I've ever been around. I was at the University of South Dakota for 28 years, and we used to joke that we were there on the Great Plains with all the space in the world, and yet everybody still wanted to park within 20 feet of their building, and we had parking problems there as well. So the current design for the Missoula College itself is designed around 270 parking spaces. The longer-term view of that South Campus master plan is to have 600 parking spaces. Is that enough? Probably not. And so again, this is as we go into what would become the final design phase of this project, we'll have to modify that and make sure that we're accounting for the amount of traffic that we will indeed see. But the thing I want to point out is that the planners took into account parking in a in a very attractive way. And again, if you look at the designs on your table, you'll see that parking is an integral part of the plan. Maybe not enough, maybe too much. We'll have to continue to refine the details of how many spots we need. And so that's a challenge that we have before us. We want to, in addition though to parking, and this applies to the main campus as well now, where parking is a challenge. We want to do everything we can going forward to encourage people to think of ways to get to the campus other than just driving their own car, single individual in a car. And so we have good bus lines in the area now, and we'll work to increase those as needed. We're making sure that we put in place good trails and bike paths within the plan. We've got the idea of a corridor that would go between the south campus and the main campus along the base of the mountain there for good bike traffic and so on. And so we all need to work, I think, to remove that congestion of individual parking. Again, we have work to do. Admittedly, we have work to do in this area, and we'll go forward to do that. But the last part of the question was, will the university enforce parking regulations on neighborhood streets? We'll have to, as we do now, work hand in hand with the city. And we don't have jurisdiction on city streets and vice versa. And so we will have to make sure that we have good arrangements in place with the city of Missoula to address parking issues and so on. It is a big problem, there's no question about that. And so we have a lot of work to do as a collaborative community to make sure that we can do this in the right way. But I think in the end, there's plenty of space in the South Campus footprint to accommodate the parking that we need.
I want to ask you a couple of follow-up questions. Relating back to the traffic study, do you intend to commission a new traffic study to reflect the larger enrollment numbers?
Yes, actually, Brent, are you in a position to maybe comment on that? Would you do so? Brent was involved in the previous, Brent Campbell from WGU.
So yeah, we'll do an updated traffic transportation study. We're going to look at travel modes too, which the President mentioned. We'll be looking at how many people currently and potentially can use transit, biking and walking as part of that transportation study. We did a comprehensive look at that. Previously, we looked at where students live and in proximity to this campus, and we'll update that information as well with the new population numbers of attendance.
And the question was also asked about the square footage of asphalt or concrete in the current plan.
It's not a number I can pull off the top of my head. I guess what I would ask people to do is to take a look at the design here and at least get a rough idea. I don't know what square footage that actually would amount to, but you can kind of see the fraction of the space that would be taken up by parking and paved area. And I guess the point I'd like to make there is that there still is quite a bit of green space associated with that plan. You know, I meant to say this earlier. The University of Montana campus is frequently cited as one of the most beautiful campuses in America. And yeah, we don't want to change that. We want the University of Montana to continue to be cited as one of the most beautiful, attractive campuses in America. So we want the design of the South Campus to reflect that and to continue that great tradition that we have. That's a crucial selling point for the University of Montana. We don't want to do anything to diminish that or to knock us out of that position. I mean, that's an important aspect for us. So we're committed to having a beautiful campus, one that has plenty of green space and one that is accessible to all kinds of users. So.
We can get that.
Okay, and Peggy just said that they will get that number for you guys. We're almost halfway through our questions and we're almost halfway through our time, so rock and roll. Question number 4. Missoula College will increase demand for housing in the neighborhoods. What studies have been completed to estimate how many more students will need housing in the immediate area? Does the university have a position or do they plan to take a position on the proposed ADU rezone, and that's a city going through city council right now, as an answer to the potential housing problem that may arise from the South Campus? So 2 questions.
So yes, we completely understand that affordable housing is an important issue for us at the university and for us in the neighborhoods around. And so when I became president 2 years ago, I actually asked Vice President for Student Affairs, Teresa Branch, I'm not sure if Teresa is here, up against the wall there, to work with her folks to really think of a long-term, a 10-year plus housing plan for the university. I know that housing in the neighborhoods is overcrowded, too many people in individual houses, too many cars. We do need to think about a housing plan and how we're going to go forward. And so I want to make a few points about that. So one, the South Campus Master Plan does address housing in a significant way. If you look at that plan, a good amount of the building that goes on there that's scheduled to go on is around student housing, and that would be certainly affordable student housing since it would be built as residence halls. We have also been in discussion with Mayor Ingen and some other folks about public-private partnerships to put in place some student-oriented housing in and around the area. So we are talking, in fact, about the 8 acres of land that we own as a university across the river by the Montech facility now as a potential site for a public-private partnership for housing that would relieve pressure on the neighborhoods to a significant extent. And if that goes well, I think there are some options down the road for additional public-private partnerships around student housing. So between the what is designed in here on the South Campus, renovations over the long term of the housing that we have, at some point the X's need some sort of attention and some upgrade, expansion maybe, so that's a part of the long-term plan. The public-private partnership is another part of the long-term plan. So yes, we're very keenly aware of the need for student-oriented housing, and we have several things in motion to work toward that. As far as the ADU issue itself, the university isn't going to take a specific position on that proposal. I think that in the long run, my own opinion is that the ADU issue probably won't be able to contribute a significant amount of housing that would relieve any pressure in the long run. But I don't know that. I haven't studied the details of the ADU proposal enough to know. But I think that we as a university have the commitment and the responsibility to do other kind of housing planning, and we're doing that in the form of residence halls and the possibility of a public-private partnership.
Okay. The next question, number 5, has 2 questions. Many Missoula residents appreciate the open space that the current model provides. What percentage of the South Campus will be dedicated to open space? Will the university commit in writing that the open space in the design won't be developed in the future?
Yeah, thanks. So here's specifically what the South Campus Master Plan says in that area. I quote out of the plan. Open space has long been a major factor in consideration of any university development. Past, present, and future design elements incorporate and preserve open space throughout planning and development of the proposed land use, and serves to tie together the natural elements of the land. Much of the character of South Campus should be determined through its open spaces. Walkways, transportation corridors, site development, and community spaces converge through open space relationships. So I think if you, again, look at the design that's on your table, it is a campus that focuses, that emphasizes open space. As much as is currently there? No, of course not. If we start putting structures on it like we have. But the folks who worked on that particular design, I think, have done a great job of a blend of open space with the buildings that would ultimately be there. I think I believe that the open space that is now related to the golf course, we can preserve that for quite a long time to come. The Missoula College building itself, and I've said this kind of from the beginning, the Missoula College building doesn't close the golf course. It will modify the golf course. We'll have to rearrange some holes and so on, but we want to preserve that golf course for as long as we can. Down the road, the second building, the third building probably will end up closing the golf course, making it small enough so that it wouldn't be a satisfactory golf course. But the Missoula College building itself won't do that. So we'll be able to have the golf course in place for some number of years to come. I'm not going to give you a precise number because it depends on the growth of the university and some other factors like that. But in addition to the golf course space, I recognize that the site is used for a lot of other purposes. The cross-country meets are a great example of that bring a lot of people to Missoula. I don't see any reason why those cross-country meets can't continue for a long, long time to come. The trail system that will be built as part of the South Campus will be useful in cross-country meets. I think that the corridor from the South Campus to the main campus would make a nice addition to a cross-country track, for example. So I think many of those functions will, well, I don't think, I mean, the plan calls for those functions to be preserved. And again, I think that more people will probably use this open space in that configuration and maybe now use it. I don't know that for sure, but it's, we are developing it in a way to really encourage, to invite people to use that, the open space that's an integral part of the campus.
Do you know what the percentage of the project is that's the open space?
I think I have that here. Just a second. Maybe I don't have that here. I do? Or do I have it? 21%. Thank you.
As the former journalist, I can't think without a notepad and pen in my hand, but yeah, the South Campus covers 210 acres, which includes actually part of the hillside there, Mount Sentinel, and which is part of the property that the university owns. Missoula College would cover 7 acres of the 210, and the current site plan for South Campus contains 35 acres of the high-quality open space, and an additional 10 for greenways, green pockets on the proposed campus. So percent is 21% at a minimum.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Becky.
We have a little less than 10 minutes left for the rest of our questions, but I know we can do it. Question number 6. Most property owners in the neighborhoods near the University of Montana take a lot of pride in their homes. Because of this, in the past 25 years, the neighborhood has revived and property values have increased. This is good for the residents and also good for the marketing and image of the university. Will the university work with the neighborhoods to maintain property values and market appeal while developing the South Campus?
Yes. You know, just thinking about this from the university's perspective, there's nothing in this for the university to have our neighborhoods deteriorate. That's not in our interest in the slightest. Why would that help the university to have deteriorating neighborhoods around it? We've all been to other campuses where the neighborhoods around the university are ones that you're not at all proud of. And that's not the case here. We're proud of the neighborhoods around the university. Those neighborhoods lend a great deal of strength and character to the university environment. And I would say that the presence of the university is a significant reason why those neighborhoods are so attractive in the first place and have some of the value that they do. And so we have no interest in doing something that will cause the deterioration of those neighborhoods. I think there are a number of things going on that will serve to preserve and in many cases enhance the surrounding neighborhoods. And I want to begin by giving credit to our student leaders in this case. So many of whom are here from ASUM, who have recently taken the initiative to begin collaborative work with the neighborhoods, putting into place, for example, the neighborhood ambassadors and a Sunday sweepers program where they go out after the game into the neighborhoods and pick up litter and improve the looks of places where, lawns and so on, where in the aftermath of games and the Saturday night, I know can get littered with various items of trash. And so the students have taken a big step forward, a big initiative in improving relationships with the neighborhoods. I want to say how proud I am of our student senate and the other students associated with that project. That took a great deal of courage on their part, and I know they're being very proactive about that. The university and the city, along with the students, are working right now on an agreement, a quality of life initiative, where we would enter into a memorandum of understanding with the city to address things like student housing, to address things like noise issues, and some of the other things that threaten the attractiveness of our neighborhoods. So yes, the university will work very diligently to help preserve those neighborhoods and make sure that we don't do something that will decrease the property value. I think that, again, in many ways, I think the attractiveness of the South Campus and the opportunities for people close by to attend events on campus and to enjoy the cultural richness, the academic richness, the recreational facilities there, in my mind, has the real potential to enhance the experience of living in those neighborhoods. And I'll be interested in hearing comments about that. But being adjacent to a well-designed, highly functioning campus that does pay attention to things like traffic and student patterns and so on, bicycling and that, I think has the opportunity to enhance the value of those neighborhoods and make them even more attractive places to live. So we are committed to making sure that we only do things that will positively impact the neighborhoods.
Thank you. 4 minutes, 2 questions. I'm one of those kind of facilitators. Okay. Question number 7. The general feeling of the community surrounding the university seems to be in favor of Missoula College and its need. However, most property owners and established residents believe that giving up the open space is not necessary when there are several other viable alternatives. And the question here is, do you or will you give any weight to these opinions?
I wouldn't be here tonight if we weren't willing and interested in hearing your opinions and your input. So the answer to that is categorically yes. And I do appreciate that there's probably no one in the audience who thinks that there isn't a need for improved educational facilities for our Missoula College students. I think that probably everybody in here agrees that we need to do something for the facility to give these students not only the space they need, but the state-of-the-art educational facility that they deserve and that they frankly pay for and expect. And so I don't think anybody's here to argue about the need for a new Missoula College facility. The fact is, at least in my view of things, that given what I said at the very beginning, that I have to think about the long-term view of the university. The South Campus represents the most viable approach to that we have on the table. And that while other options might exist for a single Missoula College building in and of itself, that the South Campus Master Plan does present the best and maybe the only viable option in the long run for the growth of the University of Montana. But having said that, we want to hear your feedback and get your opinions and your advice for us on how to structure that so it does enhance the experience for all of us.
The final question. We're right up on 8 o'clock. It's just amazing. Good for us. Question number 8. We have been told that there have been numerous planning meetings during the last 18 months. The general consensus of the residents has been that if this is the case, the meetings were posted in a very quiet manner for such an important issue. Please comment on the transparency of the process during the past 18 months.
Okay, thanks. Well, actually, during the past 18 months, there hasn't been much planning because the South Campus Master Plan was approved in 2007. The 2007 legislature appropriated the $500,000 to plan for the Missoula College building itself, which took place in the year and a half subsequent to that appropriation. The 2009 legislative session didn't give us really the opportunity to even go forward with the request. The 2011 legislative session, we did go forward with that request. It was the highest priority on the Regent's long-range building plan, the Missoula College building. It was an approximately $30 million appropriation request that was part of the legislative process then. It wasn't funded. So we're going back to the legislature this time. We haven't changed the plan in the last 18 months. The plan we went to the legislature with in 2011 is the same building, is the same proposal that we're going forward with now. So there really hasn't been any additional planning, any significant additional planning really in the last 18 months. If we're successful in getting the appropriation from the legislature, then we would go into final design phase for the whole project. So during the lead up to the master plan, there was considerable public meetings, including several Regents meetings where the plan was discussed. But in the last 18 months, we haven't done the planning. We went from one legislative session where we didn't get the funding to this upcoming legislative session with the same plan. So there really wasn't any additional planning these last 2 months.
Okay. Well, that's the end of our questions for now. And thank you so much, President.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
So, what we're going to do next, and we're going to try to get this organized and started as quickly and expeditiously as we can so that you in your small groups have plenty of time to talk. And we're going to have you wrap up at about 8:20. So that'll give you, by the time we get started, about 15 to 20 minutes to talk. So what we're going to do, you don't have to go anywhere. I want to invite the folks in the bleachers to come down and sit at the tables if you want to participate in this. If you don't want to, that's fine too. At each table there will be a facilitator. That facilitator, you guys as a group at each of your tables will choose a recorder. That's someone who has legible handwriting. All your friends think you have great handwriting. That person. That person is going to write down the answers to the questions that you're going to be discussing in your groups. So the point here is if you're one of those people who talks a lot, I tend to be one of those people who always has something to say in a group. So if I know that everyone in the group needs to be heard, please listen until I'm finished. Thanks. If everyone in the group needs to be heard, which is the case here, then I'm going to have to sort of watch myself and make sure that I don't take up all the time talking. So if you're that person, please do that. And please just help each other, help the facilitator to make sure that everyone at your table gets heard. The facilitator is going to tell you what the 2 questions are and lead your discussion, and you may begin. Okay. Here are the next steps. The next immediate step for you is to leave your beautifully written page or pages of questions and comments on the table, and we'll collect those. Those are going to be gathered up by the neighborhood councils and given to the university. And the university is going to tell us in a minute their plan for the next steps, how they're going to respond to those questions. And I just want to thank you all so much for taking the time to be here tonight, for putting the energy into having these conversations with each other in a polite and civil way. We really appreciate it, and I hope that you feel like you had a chance to get some information out there and hear some things that you needed to hear and ask some questions that you needed to ask. This is the beginning of what I think of as a slow conversation. So there will be more opportunities for you to ask questions and hear from the university. And now the university folks will tell you what that is.
I can answer that. Thank you, Christina. What we will do is, when we receive the questions, we will work on answers, and I'm thinking there are a couple channels where we can get them back out to you and to anyone else who wants them. First of all, we can post them on the Missoula College website, and I'm going to get that URL so you don't have to go searching all over for it. We'll get that posted. You can link to it from the UM homepage easily right now, but we'll work on Build Missoula College. We'll put it up online. I also think we can send the written out answers to Dave, to the neighborhood council leaders so that you have them and you'd have them available in that form as well. One of the other things I heard from Christina is that there's some interest with some people getting the answers to the questions that were asked of the president tonight, and I'm happy to get those in a bulleted list and post those and get those out as well. Oh, I forgot one more thing I'm supposed to mention, that the president has committed to holding 3 more public listening and working sessions, and so we have scheduled the first date for December 5th. Stay tuned. And it will be a late afternoon evening session, so that will be coming up. We'll get through the cat-Grizz game, I'll say it both ways, and then through Thanksgiving, but we'll be working on the answers, and then we will have that session December 5th.
Thanks, Peggy. And just one more thing, the engineering and planning firm that drew up the master plan, WGM Group, they also have a comment sheet and question sheet that's out there at their table in front. So if you have questions specifically for them about the plan, you're welcome to fill out one of their comment sheets as well. Do any of the neighborhood council folks want to say anything before we say farewell?
I just wanted to thank everyone for attending again. Also, again, to put in a plug to please participate in your neighborhood councils. I represent Lewis and Clark. Dave represents the University District. If you have any questions or comments about that, please come up and find us after the meeting. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to get more involvement with our students, residents, everyone who live in our neighborhoods.
Thanks, and I hope you'll join me in thanking everyone involved tonight and yourselves, and then we will go into recess for 10 minutes and come back and do that last little piece of housekeeping with the comments about other items. So give a big hand to everybody.